Thank you for joining me today, Cecil. I definitely appreciate you spending the time with me. We have a great guest today in Cecil Plummer. He's one of my good friends, known him for over 15 years. He's the CEO of mojohire, and he's one of the most influential people when it comes to giving to the disenfranchised people. So it's good to have him here today. Thank you, Cecil, for joining on all things business and technology.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for your kind words. There's mutual admiration, David. You've been an inspiration for me for a lot of years.
Well, I really appreciate it. One of the questions is, go ahead, introduce yourself. Let me know what it is that you do at mojohire, what your company is about.
Sure. So I'm the CEO at mojohire.ai, and mojohire.ai is one of the, I know we'll be editing. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at mojohire.ai, and mojohire.ai is one of the most advanced artificial intelligence companies in the market. At the end of the day, what we do is help companies find talent faster. One of the biggest issues that CEOs out there are having is getting the right talent into their organizations. You would think with all of the people unemployed and all of the layoffs in tech that CEOs have plenty of talent, but it's still the number one problem. And we still have millions and millions of open job roles in this country. So mojohire.ai is looking to solve that problem and help companies get those requisitions closed faster.
Awesome. Now, I know you came from serving the disenfranchised community with the Western Region Minority Supplier Diversity Conference, and you really took it to the next level. It was in the red for forever, and then you took it black, and year after year, you just see the growth of it to where you're able to hand it off. How was that transition for you?
It was a difficult decision, but it was time. I'm a big believer in progress, and you have to keep things fresh. You have to keep things new. And I felt that I had poured everything that I could into the role, and then it was time to give someone else a chance, time for fresh ideas and new directions, and likewise to keep myself sharp and contributing to the community. It was time to try something different. And I was really interested in technology, always have been. And of course, artificial intelligence is the next frontier. And I think it's important to have ethical people at those frontiers in the forefront of those any emerging technology. And it's important to make sure that there are people out there that aren't just after dollars, but are actually solving problems. And so I thought, well, while it was difficult to let go of the relationships that I built over that time. And I didn't let go of all of them, of course, but it was the right decision for me. And I think the right decision for the organization. And I'm hoping that they'll reach even new heights by having a leader that has a perspective that I don't have.
That's pretty important that you realize that you gave all you could give, and you also wanted to continue to grow in the workforce and so forth. What made you choose mojohire? I know the big news today is AI and so forth, but you could have chose pretty much any other career besides going into mojohire. What was the sticking point for you on mojohire?
Well, that's a great question, David. As you know, the position I had was very visible. So there were many different types of offers that came my way to join different types of organizations. But one thing I did learn about myself in my previous role is that I need to be passionate about what I'm doing if I'm going to be successful. I need to believe it because when I believe it, I can be authentic. And I think authenticity really sells to people. It really speaks to people. I changed that word from sell to speaks to people intentionally because I don't like selling, even though selling is a way of life. I don't like selling. I think selling is an old-fashioned term that needs to go away. It's one-dimensional. Selling is about getting somebody to sign, closing the numbers, and it reeks of a one-sided relationship where what I really enjoy doing is helping people solve their problems. And I think when you bring value and help people solve problems, that you're not really selling, you're partnering with your customers. That's what I really wanted. And so when those different options came my way, and I started asking people, one of my key um, questions would be, how is this position going to be evaluated? And when I heard the right answer about what are the goals of this company and what are you looking to do with it? And it was really about solving a problem and really helping people achieve their goals. I knew that was the right spot for me. And so the product was innovative, the mindset of the funders was right, and they were looking to solve a problem and at the end of the day, help people. And I love that because in addition to being a cutting edge AI product, they also have worked very hard to include um, inclusion and anti-bias technology into their AI. So we're not just helping solve a business problem, but we're also making sure that we're not contributing or even contributing to solving a social problem as well with our anti-bias technology.
I think that's pretty important. What you said is that the keyword selling has changed, and everybody knows these days that robots could actually sell. I mean, people go online and just buy right through your computer, so anybody could do the selling. I think that partnershiping, the relationship, is very important. That's something that drives me in my career, is making sure that we're a true partnership. It's not I get two, you get one. It's actually going out and we both split it. Split that difference, which is pretty important. So yeah, that's so knowing that the partnership is key to you. Over the last year you've been the CEO, what is it the biggest challenge that you found during that time?
That's a great question, David. The biggest challenge that we found is that there's a lot of confusion and misinformation out in the marketplace when it comes to artificial intelligence. We have this generative AI term that's out there, and artificial intelligence has actually been around for a very, very long time, but people don't really know that or understand that. And they don't understand the different levels of artificial intelligence, and they don't understand the different usage or ways artificial intelligence can be used. And so between the misinformation in the marketplace and Hollywood, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not a real um, risk with generative AI, but what I'm saying is not all AI is generative. Generative is one type of AI. And I think that's the biggest challenge we've come up against is that we approach companies with a product that can really help them and solve a problem for them. But they've got legal and compliance departments who've said blanketly, we have to go through, this earth-shattering, comprehensive evaluation process for anything that even mentions the letters AI. Or they've taken a stance that says we're not going to implement that AI. We're going to wait until all the regulations and the regulatory issues and laws are in place before we engage with AI. And that's just a stance of fear, right? That all comes from fear. And again, with generative, there's some legitimate fear there, but our real problem has been that people don't dig in enough to know that there are forms of AI that are completely safe and unbiased and bring a very small amount of risk to their company. And that's been our challenge, is educating people and here getting to the right people to provide that education with. What we find is that in corporate America, the people who are making these decisions, like attorneys and risk managers, are so far away from the actual day-to-day operations of their company and things that are being used that they don't understand. And so the best way to mitigate is to stay as far away as possible. Right. And so that's like, what's the best way to make sure that you don't get hurt skiing? Well, don't ski. What's the make sure that you don't drown? Well, don't go swimming. And that's the kind of stance that we're seeing, and that's the kind of mentality that we're combating. And it's tough because we have the answers. It's tough because we have the answers, but getting to the right people with those answers is a challenge. So you end up with this kind of interesting game of telephone where you're instructing the end users so they can go tell their managers, so they can go tell their man, so they can go to legal and the risk compliance team, right? And depending on the individual that you're speaking with, there's various levels of confidence and tenure within the relationships. So some people might be great, thanks for this information, but I'm too fearful to take it upstairs to my boss, or I take it to my boss, but my boss is jockeying for his or her next promotion, so they don't want to take it to legal and rock the boat. So it's a very challenging landscape.
Yeah, I'd been in SaaS selling for a while, and I think you're figuring out some of these tweaks. I obviously having the new AI, having lawyers involved. I'm used to selling big deals with lawyers involved, but usually they already know the product. They already know what it is. They don't have to worry about the social impact of it, of what AI can actually bring, whether it's biased or not biased. They don't have to have the governance put in place because it's already been in place when I'm selling. So to see a new technology come out that is based around AI, and then the scare that we all see because of what happened with Google and so forth, that bias does creep in and people start thinking, is everything the same? So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how Mojo AI hire AI goes later on in life, like in 2, 3 years. I know you're already forecasting for that, so I'm pretty excited to see that. Um, with me, one of the things that I love to do is try to figure out some of the things that make you who you are to get into the CEO level. And the way that you've been the president for 8 years, now you're the CEO here, and before that you've been on many boards. What are some of the things that helped you with that role? How did you get to become on the board? How did you become the CEO? Because you didn't start as a business owner, you started working your way up through as your career goes.
Wow, that's a big question. There are a lot of different factors. So I did start my career in corporate America, worked my way up into management, made a name for myself with a Fortune 1000 organization. And while I was there, I was introduced to this concept of, community impact and supply chain inclusion and things of that nature. And I was invited into those things because of how I conducted myself, how I communicated, and how I developed relationships. So my career has been really interesting because most of my moves have all been invitations as opposed to me going out and seeking them. It's all been invitations, and that includes whether it was being CEO at the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council, or whether it was CEO in the job that I'm in now, or even all of the boards that I've sat on were I was invited based on being open and being visible. And I like to think being ethical and inclusive in my business relationships. And that's really what brought me to the positions into those positions. I think the main thing is caring. One of the things that one of my old managers described me as, you can always rely on Cecil to do what he's asked to do. You can rely on him doing it thoughtfully, and you can always rely on him doing it with a smile. And so that was really kind of who I am. As my dad taught me, whatever you're doing, always do your best and do it with a smile, and that'll put you head and shoulders above most folks. And I found that to be true, that good help is hard to find. And if you do a job and do it with integrity and do it to the best of your ability and, minimize the drama, there are always unpleasant things that come into business, but you don't have to participate in expanding the displeasurable parts of business. You can try to make it more positive. And I think that has always allowed me to collaborate with people for better and better results. And I think people witnessed that and they said, I want to be a part of that. Another person, her name was Nancy Krupinski. I'll never forget her. And we were talking about big projects that we're working on at that Fortune 1000. And she said, something about the way you approach business. People want you to win, and they want to
Mm.
support seeing you win. And I really believe that. I don't want to succeed at anybody else's expense. I don't like the whole zero-sum game mentality. I don't think that is good for business, and it definitely hasn't made the kind of world that we all want our children and our grandchildren to grow into. Unfortunately, there's a lot of successful people and successful organizations that play the zero-sum game and do win, but all the rest of us lose. And so I think by having a mindset of treat others as you would want to be treated, um, s- tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may, do the right thing when nobody is looking, is really the way that I've been allowed or had the privilege of serving in leadership roles. And truth be told, I hear from folks all the time, hey, are you going to come back? Would you come back to this company if we had a role for you? Would you come back? Or it was great working for you. I'd love to work for you again. And those are the kind of things that I really think that matter in life is we don't have to choose between success and being a good person. I think you can have both.
I truly believe that that is kind of how I feel. I think that when you're giving your all, if you do it ethically, telling the truth, it matters. And then making sure that it's not a zero sum lose is important. So I appreciate that there still are business owners out there that do it the ethical way, the ones that really want to help and also not take advantage of what's out there. I think there is a way for us all to win without being unethical. That's really good to hear that there still are CEOs like yourself out there with that. Now, you spoke about earlier in your career before you started working, your father giving you good advice. Is that who you would say is your mentor, or is it important to have mentors when getting to your level?
I think mentorship or having advisors maybe is a different way to say it. I think having advisors is really important. And I would say as a young person, my dad was one of my advisors. He wasn't a perfect human being, so but there were nuggets that I gleaned from our relationship. So I don't think there's one person. First of all, advisors is very, very important. If you look around the world, the most powerful people in the world, including the President of the United States, they always have their cabinets and their circles, right? King, Henry VIII or what was it? Richard the Lionhearted had his round table. Everyone needs advisors because we are all inherently limited to our own perspective. And if you are a person who thinks you've got all the answers, then you're really in trouble. And now that doesn't mean you can't be successful. Some people do it all their way and they're tremendously successful. They tend not to look back at you know, the
Carnage.
long line of bodies and the carnage left in the wake. Um, but I think the people who are truly successful and respected and get the most done are people who really care about people, care about their cause, and surround themselves with people to fill in their blind spots. We all have blind spots, and that's one of the biggest problems we have in not just in corporate America, but in the world, is that people really don't believe that they have blind spots. So having advisors and mentors is critically important. And I can't say that there's no single person who can fulfill that role for you. And so, whether you're whatever it is there's some people who it's got to be, their experience as a parent. Other people could be their experience as a business owner. Other people could have shared their experience as a homeowner, or a property owner. So, I mean, I think there are multifacets to our lives, and I think it's important to surround yourself with a circle of advisors and mentors who have a proven track record and expertise in certain areas. And then you have to be wise enough to know who to approach with what. I've actually had some failures in the past, and I know we're probably going to get to this later, where the advisor was a good advisor in a particular topic, and then we lend them that expertise to speak to us in all the different areas of our lives, or we give them that credibility, even though it's maybe not warranted. And then you take that advice as well. And sometimes it can be quite disastrous because they mean well, but they really don't know what they're talking about. And so I think it's important to cultivate a circle of advisors with people that have strengths in the specific areas where you feel like you need help. But I think that the main thing is you have to start with a position of humility. If you're not
Hmm.
humble enough to believe that you have blind spots, or heaven forbid that you can misinterpret something and maybe need to get more education and change your opinion, then you're starting out behind the eight ball. I have a really good friend who gave a speech one time, and it was really interesting because he said people always want to be right. And so you go through your life at different stages and you have these strong, strong convictions about something. And then you learn something more. And sometimes then you'll change your position as you mature or learn more information. And then you change your mind so you're right again. And then so we all have this kind of um, perspective that like whatever I think is therefore correct. And when we find out that we're wrong, we change our position and then we say, well, now I'm right, instead of just being kind of open to saying, I need to take in information, analyze that, get advice, and try to make the most informed decision I possibly can, um, and kind of remove my ego and the emotion from it, and really truly seek knowledge. And so if you're a knowledge seeker with humility, I think you'll be able to assemble the right circle of people that can help you achieve your goals and put the most good into the world. And I mean that both economically and socially and whatever other Lee you want to put in there.
What's one of your biggest failures?
Wow, wow. I have to just pick one. Wow, because there's many to choose from. Let me think about where I want to go with that. And I want to say that that's the first thing is that we live in a society that, people use this word meritocracy. And I think that's a toxic word because it reeks of perfection. And people like I'm a perfectionist, and they wear that with a badge of pride. But the reality is we all fail at different times in our lives. The key is, how do you learn from that failure? And what do you do with that to enhance yourself and enhance the world going forward? But my biggest failure, if I had to nail one down, do you want personal or do you want professional? What,
Yeah, I love the personal one, but I think we should do both.
okay, so sure, I'll do both. The professional one, I think, is probably the easiest. There was a time in my career when I was in the food service industry, and I wasn't a cook or anything like that. I mean, I did come up the ranks through there, but it really wasn't something that I was passionate about. And I wanted to go to work every day. I wanted to get my paycheck. I wanted to get promotions. And it's not that I just didn't care, but I wasn't passionate. And I think it's hard to be good at something that you're not passionate about. And so, and I didn't feel proud about the work I was doing. And eventually, I think that was one of the few times in my life that I was actually asked to leave. And I think it's kind of like it was my choice. Oh, why if you don't leave, we're gonna fire you. So I think that was the biggest one. But what I learned from that is I have to be passionate about what I'm doing if I'm going to be successful. And so my biggest failure was not recognizing that up front and making the necessary adjustments from a position of fear. So I think that would be my biggest failure, my biggest piece of advice for people is don't let fear guide your decisions, any of your decisions. All of the worst things in the world that have happened have all been based on fear, and the fear that you're not going to be able to pay your bills or not going to be able to feed yourself or your family. Making decisions from that perspective is just not going to get you where you want to go. Because you need to be excited when you get up every day. You need to be passionate. You need to be able to do it with integrity. So that was my biggest failure, is not doing that job well. I think personally, there's so many. Oh my gosh, there's so many failures. But if I was going to pick one, I would say not forcing my children to spend more family time together when we were young, not playing enough together when we were a family. Um, just as kids grow up, you're always worried about your budget and trying to
Mhm.
make ends meet and cutting corners and not doing certain expenses. And I'm not saying you have to have money to have a good time together. That's not what I'm saying, but you're worried about so many things. And I would definitely, in some cases, spend the money and buy those tickets and go to that baseball game together or whatnot. Um, and then I would force the kids to do it together. I think. And what I mean by that is a lot of times as kids get to a certain age, they all want to hang out with their friends. Go hang out with your friends. Hang out with let them hang out with their friends. Let them invite a friend. And if they have siblings, I think it's important for them to have time where there's no other option but to engage with your siblings.
One of the things that I love to ask is, what's one question you wish I asked? Why? And then also, can you tell me the answer to
Oh, one
it?
question. You've done a good job asking questions. I suppose if there was a question I would want to be asked, it would be, what do I think is the most important characteristics for business leaders to have going in the future? And my answer would be, I guess there would be two answers: empathy and integrity. I think it would be empathy and integrity. And empathy because you just have to care. There are a lot of the issues that we face in business or even as a society is because, or a lot of the goals we miss is just because we really don't care. We're trying to grow our business, we're trying to hit our revenue numbers, and that's really a selfish act. What it's really about is how many people can you help, and then the money will come, right? I feel like the biggest brands in the world don't sell, they market. And to me, marketing is an offering, right? Selling is it's a hunting, right? It's like I've got to go out and convince somebody to buy this thing. But I think the best brands in the world, whether it's Apple or Mercedes, or I mean, when was the last time a salesperson knocked at your door or called you on the phone and said, "I really need you to buy a Rolex today. I really need you to buy a Mercedes." Or when was the last time FedEx called you and said, "Hey, you're not sending enough packages." It doesn't work that way. They just try to provide an excellent service to people, and I really think that that comes from an empathetic perspective. And then the other one is integrity. And said another way, I'd say that's just doing the right thing. A lot of the big problems we have in business, I mean, we have a whole legal industry out there that is based on people not doing the right thing. Right. Yeah. And I think if we had leaders with empathy and integrity, we'll have more talent than we can hire. We'll have more customers than we can service, and we'll have we'll maximize profits without the risks on the other side. Right. It's like when companies do a bad thing and they put out a product that hurts people, and then they try to bury it. First of all, it's like, should we really release an unsafe product? Gee whiz. I don't know. I think your 4-year-old could answer that question. And then when it happens, should we try to hide it? Um, you know, and we use fancy words like response and mitigation and things like that to say, really, if we just had integrity in our business practices, we'd avoid so many harms for ourselves and our shareholders and our communities. And I think that all comes back, I think, to a point of empathy, which is caring for others.
Well, Cecil, it's been an honor to talk to you today about all the things that's going on in your life and throughout your career, leading with integrity and empathy is key to any great business leader, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. I know that we got to go, but we will definitely have another conversation around this, because every time I talk to you, I usually gain knowledge. So I appreciate you joining me today on all things business and technology.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to joining us all at the top when we achieve all of our goals. I look forward to seeing you there.
Appreciate it, Cecil. You have a good one.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you'll tune in next time. For more information on how we can help your business, check out our website at sigmaways.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please send me a message with any topic or questions you want me to cover. Also, if you're in the world of business and technology, I would love to have you as a guest. Please hit the like and subscribe button below and stay up to date on the next video. Once again, I'm David, and this is All Things Business and Technology. Cheers.